What's going on, everybody? Tom here with Keto Lifestyle, and today I've got a very special guest on the show. As you can see on your screen right in front of you, I'm here with Ben. You may know him as the Primal Bro. He's another YouTuber here. He's got Instagram as well. It's Primal Bro. Look him up if you haven't. But I'm gonna kick it over to him, let him introduce himself, and give you a little bit about who he is and where he comes from.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Ben, aka the Primal Bro, on YouTube, Instagram, primalbro.com. I was fortunate enough to get the name everywhere, so you can find me anywhere with that name. At one point in my life, I weighed 333 pounds. Through pretty much every ancestral diet that's been popular, paleo, primal, ketogenic, and currently I follow a carnivore or zero carb version of a ketogenic diet. I lost 155 pounds. Now I do a lot of kettlebell and body weight exercises, but the big thing that I do is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I train and compete in Jiu-Jitsu. I have behind me over there 2 medals that I've gotten. So like it's something that I do a lot. I try really hard and I'm passionate about it. But the big thing I'm passionate about is weight loss, fitness, nutrition, and helping people that need help like I did.
Awesome, awesome. Now, we have a lot of similarities there, right? We both lost a lot of weight. We're trying to help other people through our reach, and we kind of have different approaches here. Now, the first approach that I kind of wanted to get into is you mentioned jujitsu, and my subscribers know that I'm a big into more of the bodybuilding, powerlifting style. I don't do a ton of cardio, and I know jujitsu is a lot of cardio there. How do you feel like this type of diet is functional with jujitsu? And just give us a little bit about your experience with jujitsu for weight loss in general, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so it's jujitsu is something that is very endurance or cardio heavy. But honestly, I wish that I would have started sooner. I waited until I had lost a lot of weight because I was. It's the same kind of like nerves or hesitation you get when you go to the gym and you're overweight for the first time and you start lifting weights. You just don't feel like you belong there. You don't feel like you're doing good enough, but you really are. And it works the same for martial arts and jujitsu. So I wish I had started that sooner. I think it really would have helped my weight loss. I see a lot of big people come into the gym. And then they just it melts right off them because you're especially if you go like I do 4 or 5 times a week. So it's it demands a lot of calories. I can tell you that. And on a ketogenic diet, I was skeptical or hesitant at first to try to fuel it with fats based on the knowledge I had at the time. It was like, so what I tried to do is like load my carbs ahead of the workout. A little bit when I was following a ketogenic diet, but ultimately what I found worked best was just keeping my fats high all the time. I think initially it might be rough if let's say you do something really active and then you want to switch your diet. That initial period might be kind of rough to convert or to learn how to do such a heavy, intense workout without the carbs that you were used to using. But if you're already following a keto diet and you want to start it, just remember to keep your fats high, and I think that I think you'll totally be fine. The energy is more of a clean, steady burn for me. I don't get tired the same like I did before. I feel like I can go longer. And then the higher my fats are, the more those are amplified.
And what do you do to prepare yourself for these type of training sessions? I know we talked a little bit in a video that you and I shot for your channel, which guys, I will link that in the description. We have another video with entirely different topics that's going to be posted on his channel. So it'll be down below. Go and check that out. And he'd asked me a very similar question, but I want to get his opinion on this. What are you eating before you go work out? Are you carb loading? Are you, well, I guess you're on a zero carb diet. So are you doing anything special to up your energy before and prolong the energy burst through the workout?
So I follow a zero carb diet, but ultimately I am big on keto, and I'm really just big on results. So I follow a zero carb diet, but the big thing that I do before jujitsu is I'll supplement with ZipFizz. It's an electrolyte energy supplement that I take. It's the only really non-zero carb thing in my diet, but I find that boost of electrolytes, mainly pre-workout, is the most effective thing that I've ever tried to do. So it's a little bit of supplementation. I've found now that I perform better when I have my biggest meal of the day at lunchtime, and then I'll have a much smaller meal at dinner, which always comes after training to kind of replenish what I've lost.
And I'm assuming so your lunch there is going to be big, high fat. You're trying to boost those blood ketones as high as possible, and just you have them reserved there for the training, and then you just kind of refilling them just to satiate afterwards. I guess is the
Exactly. So if you want to get a little more specific, so like carnivore and zero carb, what those are, they're more of like food options. It's you're eliminating vegetables and things like that, but the macros can be all over the place. You can do 50% protein or 10% protein. So I still like to keep my fats because ketogenic is about the macros, zero carbs about the food choice.
mm,
So they're not independent from one another. You can use them together, and that's what I do. So my fat, I'll have a lot of fat at that big meal at lunchtime, and then I might have more protein at dinner afterwards because I do still find that protein helps my recovery. It helps me get back because I typically do strength and conditioning, so I'll do some kind of normal workout in the mornings, and then jiu-jitsu takes place at night. And if I have a little more protein at night before bed, I find that the next workout in the morning isn't as hard. So I find it helps me with recovery. So like, yeah, it's fat heavy ahead of that intense workout, protein heavy afterwards at a smaller meal.
awesome. So that's very interesting to me because I was actually not aware of that. I figured carnivore was just a form of keto where you took to an extreme and you actually just try to keep a higher fat ratio. But it sounds to me like that's not the importance of it. The importance of it is what you're eating, not keeping the ratios. Although you are in a state of ketosis by default because you're not eating any carbs, it's less important for you to go real high on the fats or take MCT oils or ketones or anything like that as it would be for someone like me.
Yeah, like if because since primarily I want to use fat for energy, even when I was keto, I found that keeping my fats as close to 80% as I could would always make me feel and perform the best. So when I went carnivore zero carb, when you look into it and you do the research, it basically is just telling you to eliminate plant-based foods and things from your diet. So eat only animal-based. But if you eat sirloin steaks for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your protein level is going to be insanely high without adding a lot of fat to that. So for me, it's about hitting the macros that I want, but eating the foods that are on this plan.
Awesome. Now, in terms of vegetables, this is a conversation I really wanted to have with you because my subscribers know that my girlfriend is allergic to most vegetables, and a lot of people seem to have an issue with not eating vegetables. And as a carnivore, I'm sure you've done a ton of research on vegetables and whether you need them or not, the impact of them on your body. And just as someone who's far more knowledgeable in that than or has done a lot more research on that than I have, what is your take on vegetables? Do you think it is necessary for the human body? Do you think you can get the same nutrients through organ meats? Like, what is your stand on vegetables in general?
I think that vegetables are non-essential. I don't want to say that they're good for you because I don't necessarily think that there are benefits to consuming vegetables versus not, obviously, because I don't. Um, but at the same time, I don't know that if you are, again, if you're following a ketogenic diet and you're sticking to your normal 20 grams of net carbs, so you're having cauliflower and broccoli and spinach, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. But people like your girlfriend they kind of get hit harder by the same things that happen to all of us when we eat the vegetables. Um, I can go more into that. I think I'll let you direct me how much you want me to talk about. So let's call it the danger of vegetables. Again, I don't necessarily think they're bad for you. I just eliminate them because they're non-essential. The same vitamins and minerals are just as, if not more, bioavailable, so to speak. So like getting it from meats, organ meats especially. But then if you look at things like duck fat, that's where I get my vitamin K because I've had people ask me about that one. Just trying to find some way that they can, you and I have talked about this, how people will question you hard if you do something that's extreme or non-conventional, and people question the ketogenic diet. So when I explain my diet to them, the questioning goes even deeper. So I've had people ask me about things as specific as vitamin K, and I use duck fat to cook things. There's vitamin K in duck fat. B12 isn't available. That's always the argument for carnivores, is not available from a plant source. It has to come from animal or from animal matter. So there's all sorts of different arguments, but my research, I see that I don't need vegetables to get the things my body needs because I can get them elsewhere, and there are potential dangers or issues that come from eating vegetables.
Now, you haven't always been carnivore, so what made you give up vegetables? Did they just not sit well for you, or what happens to you if you eat a vegetable now? Like I'm curious to see the effect on your body having not eaten them for so long.
So I go to like why I made the switch. When I was keto, I had hit a stall. So like I hadn't lost. I was stuck at 186, um, probably for a month. And I'm a person. I mess with my macros. I mess with my workouts. Like I really do try to crack down and make the changes. But that was the first time I'd ever hit like a long stall for me. It was the end of December in 2017. I saw that was right when like Sean Baker was gaining a lot of steam on like podcasts and the keto sphere. Uh, so he was doing a thing like a carnivore challenge for January. So I thought that I would do that. And I did that without doing a lot of research. So my initial takeaways were all anecdotal. I went in the first 3 weeks so like right in the first part of January, I'd lost 7 pounds, and it was after being stalled for a month. So like it leaned me out a lot. And because I was hitting my macros, I didn't experience any more energy or less energy. I can say that there were no energy benefits making that switch, but I sleep better. And I still have that one's still a little anecdotal to me. I haven't found anything in my research that explains that very well. Um, but I do know now. I do know why the puffiness and the weight retention, why that went away. Um, Again, I'll go more into it. I brought up or I have an example. I like to use broccoli as an example because that's something that everybody likes. But now if I eat vegetables, I honestly haven't eaten vegetables since the end of December. So we're in April now. But I did have after one of my tournaments when I won a bronze medal, we went out to dinner to a Brazilian steakhouse. I stayed on plan, and then I rewarded myself. I had halotop because I used to overconsume that towards the end of my keto adventure, which could be another big reason that I wasn't losing weight. But I did towards the end of that stall cut out the ice cream. Still nothing happened. But I had ice cream. I fell asleep hard like a baby. I felt a little sluggish and I just wanted to go lay down and go to sleep. And then the next day I felt fine. It had almost no major or long term impacts on me to consume something off plan, so to speak.
So you haven't seen a change in your body to where you're intolerant of vegetables or anything like that, because that's a lot of people's concerns is when you stop doing it, your body can have issues with it when you come back because those things are fermentable. Sometimes people get stomach aches, sometimes they get gas. Uh, no experience of anything like that for you then.
No, because like I said, I haven't purely eaten a vegetable. I had ice cream, which
Yeah.
has a lot of other plant-based and the sweetener primarily. So I can't say like, oh, if I eat broccoli, I'm going to be fine. But I had something that in my brain, or to me, and I think you would agree, is worse than broccoli.
Yeah.
And I felt fine. So I'm thinking that if I had the broccoli, I also would have not. I would have experienced nothing.
Awesome, awesome. And also, you mentioned that a little bit about your sleeping schedule in there. So I've actually never heard carnivore actually making it easier for people to sleep. I get a lot of complaints of the exact opposite here on keto. So maybe that's something that I need to investigate a little bit further, or we need to, dive in a little bit one of these days and see if that may be an option for these people that are in a state of ketosis and are having issues sleeping. I wonder if it's something to where carnivore could help them out. What was your experience with sleep before you started carnivore?
So when I went keto, I found like I did probably what happens to a lot of people before keto when I was running on a normal like carbohydrate based diet. I needed like 9 hours of sleep to be a tolerable person. But when I went keto, especially like 3 months in, I only needed like 6 hours of sleep a night, and I was energized all throughout the day. I woke up high energy, and like I would just start to get tired when it was time to go to bed. Um, so I kind of misinterpreted that at first as like, oh, I'm not sleeping the same or like as well, but I was just as rested, if not more rested on the ketogenic diet. I was just sleeping less. I think it was my body responding to not constantly being on the roller coaster that is a carbohydrate based diet.
Right, your
When
insulin
I,
levels flattened out and you weren't constantly getting the energy waves.
right. And when I went carnivore, I still only sleep like 5 or 6 hours a night. But I wake up feeling more what like I feel better when I wake up in the morning, like I'm getting better quality sleep. You said you hadn't heard of it really affecting sleep, and that's what I was saying when I did research. I still don't see where that's happened for anyone else. So there may have been something else in my life that lined up with that to make, again, it was an anecdotal example, and I don't have evidence for that one. Um, but it worked for me, and that's what this whole thing is about. My YouTube channel, Tom's YouTube channel, is just sharing my experience, sharing our experiences, and letting you guys know what worked for us, so you can try whatever you'd like.
Right, exactly. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about on this, it's personal experience. And I have heard a lot of people about having like insomnia on keto, which is why that really piqued my interest when you had mentioned that, because it seems like it did the opposite for you, which is actually fantastic. And it's something that I may actually recommend to people that are suffering from that in the future. Just say, hey, let's try going carnivore for 3 or 4 days, see if it helps your sleep schedule. Because if that helps you out, it could help others. And that's what this is all about, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's why I started the channel. It's why you and I are here, talking today. It's what this whole thing's about.
Exactly. Now, one thing that I am not, and a lot of my following maybe would be parents, and I know you yourself are a parent. How does
Yep.
this lifestyle work around with you have a family? I know you have small children, a wife. How do they maintain it? Are they carnivore, or do you substitute things for them?
They are, we could call, my family still follows, so they're like late converts to everything, right? So the first diet I ever did was a paleo diet, and I did that for like 3 months on my own. And then everyone kind of switched over because it made sense. It was easier. They saw what I was doing. Um, Same thing with keto. I started doing keto, and then they fell into kind of like a lazy version of keto. Nobody tracks anything, especially not for the kids, right? But they still, when we talk about healthy foods and good foods in our house, it's essentially we promote a ketogenic diet, but with fruit. Um, I do encourage my kids to eat fruits and vegetables. Still, I haven't forced that on them because, like I said, I don't think vegetables are bad for you, but I also don't think they're good for you. I think they're non-essential. So that's more of a personal preference. People like your girlfriend, for example, who react poorly, they have to take them out. And if you join or you look at, there's a lot of like N=1 things at meatheals.com, which I'm not affiliated with, but I'm going to bring it up because you can go there and see people's stories about how they've cured different diseases and things that are impacting them. So it kind of depends on how your body reacts to them. But for my kids, I push them or I encourage them to eat everything except refined sugars, grains, pasta. They do honey sometimes as like a sweetener. We're not overly crazy with them, but it is a much more low carb diet. And in terms of comparing it to a standard American diet, other families or my kids' friends probably think that we're crazy people. But yeah.
I mean, that makes sense, keeping them off the refined sugars, because I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, but I definitely believe that sugar is a drug. It affects us very negatively. There have been, brain scans done that show someone that just ate a bunch of sugar versus someone who's on cocaine. So I kind of respect the fact that you keep that out of your children's lives. But how do you do that in a situation where they're at a birthday party, they're at a school party? I mean, you just let them have the cupcake and it's a one-time treat, or do you try to steer them away from that as well?
No, it's a let them be kids thing. I don't. One thing that we don't do a ton of is and this might be criticized, right? But I'll be honest because it's me. Is that we're more about like informing, right? So when we talk about healthy foods, and we've really gotten to the point where they prefer to eat berries and things like that. But if we go to a birthday party and they're serving pizza and cake and there aren't any other options, I let them know, like, obviously this isn't the best, but like, look, you do. We kind of make them. I kind of tell them the same thing that you tell people who are just starting out dieting, right? It's like, look at the overall, look at your week. You ate good all week. You can have this weekend. It is so laid back that it's almost not fair to label it low carb or keto or anything like that. It's just we encourage them to have whatever they want except refined carbohydrates and sugars. And then again, we let them be kids' birthday parties, their own birthday parties. They'll have normal cake. We don't even do like a ketogenic style cake. It's all about balance. And they're children still. So I want to instill a healthy relationship with food and good habits. But I also want them to be able to be kids.
Right, and I think it's the important thing there is you're raising them on a healthy lifestyle, whether they decide to go carnivore or not. You're not forcing that on them, but you want them to be healthy and not grow up to be like in the state of America we are now, where most people are overweight or obese. It's about bringing that next generation up to be healthy. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Children are the future, and I do believe that, even though it's kind of cliche. So like, I want them to not go through what I went through. I mean, I weighed 333 pounds, and I can tell you, it's 100% because of eating habits and it might, if I wanted to diet, like, there were several times in high school I wanted to diet when I didn't know things. My parents would try and help me, but the way they try and help me is like brown rice and like whole wheat breads. It was, the same things. So I might as well have been eating candy bars still. It was almost no different. I never stuck to any of that stuff.
And this was
Um,
back when the food pyramid was like the law of the land,
yeah,
pretty much,
yeah.
which now we
It,
know is total trash. But that was, back then. That's, I mean, even when I was a child, I'm a little bit younger than you, but we're pretty close. That was, oh, you need most your diet should be grains, and to me, that just doesn't work.
yeah, I don't know if you remember this. They would do a picture of a plate, and it'd be like, it would just be split down the middle, and like the whole right side was grains, and then there'd be a tiny little bit of protein and a tiny little bit of like some fruits. Like it was bad. It just wasn't a good. I
Slight
mean,
dig.
obviously we know that now, but yeah, I want to make sure that my kids use that because it's kind of scary to see with all the things that I know, with all the things all the good information out there. There's still a lot of work to do, so to speak, because there are very few children or families that we're associated with locally or personally that share the same viewpoints or knowledge that we have.
And we're in the age of information, so I think that number of people is going to expand greatly. The world is looking for a way to solve its diet crisis because, especially here in America, weight is becoming a huge problem. And I think that the more diets like this get out there, the more options people have, the more people you're going to start seeing following that lifestyle and overall becoming healthier individuals.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I would ideally, I'm raising people that you won't have to worry about in the future. There won't be anything to correct. I think that's a good way to look at it is to just prevent it, nip it in the bud. I don't want them to get to the point where they're trying to fix it. I want them to not have to deal with it in the first place.
I agree. So I did give you guys the opportunity to ask me some questions, and they were going to get relayed here to Ben, and those were on my Instagram and YouTube, and I went ahead and picked three of them that I really liked. Now, the first question is actually about ketones, and me being on a ketogenic diet, I do monitor my ketones all the time to make sure that things I'm eating aren't really messing with me and not harming my keto diet. Now, is that an important thing for you to do because you are on a zero carb diet? Are you ever just curious? Are you looking for a specific ketone range, or does it matter?
So yeah, I guess caring is a strong or like it's a broad term. I care in the sense that like I'm interested to know and to see the levels. I encourage people to look for success in ways other than the scale, and if tracking your ketones helps with that, then I think that that's wonderful. For me, I was huge when I first started the keto diet. Like so many people, I was huge into the pea strips. I would do at least one a day, if not like one in the morning and one at night, just to try to see the color change at all. Um, and then it kind of, I just felt, like, I don't know, I'm wasting my time. I emptied a bottle and I didn't order anymore. And that was when I first started keto, which at this point was a year and a half or 2 years ago. Um, and now earlier this month in April, I bought a keto. Actually, last month I bought the Keto Mojo and I let it sit around for a while. Earlier this month, I did test my blood ketones, but mostly because I get questions like that all the time. What are your ketones? What are your ketones? So I took it for informational purposes to share, to show. And I got a 1.2. That was like 3 hours after lunch and no workout, just to give some context or a little more value to that number. Um, but I haven't checked them since. I still plan on checking them to provide some value for my followers and things like that. But I operate way more on how I feel, how I perform, if I can sleep good, if I'm thinking clearly. It's more of a personalized, personal approach. I'm not using numbers to search for, or I'm not chasing numbers, I guess, so to speak, all the time. Not
Perfect.
even on the scale anymore.
And that's important to remember. People always chase that ketone rating, and how you feel is so much more important. Now, moving on to the next one, because we are getting a little time constrained here. But well, how do you feel about boredom on the carnivore diet? Do you feel that you just run out of options, or how do you keep yourself from becoming bored with eating pretty much just meats or animal products?
There are times where it becomes boring. But the big foundation of my diet is steak and eggs. So those are the things that I might get bored of. But then I'll have a bacon cheeseburger because I'll still have cheese. That's like a treat, gives me some variety. Bacon's something I don't do a lot of, so it helps me switch it up or kind of tame a craving. Um, but I'm fortunate enough to be a happy repetitive eater. Even when I was heavy, I would repetitive eat. I would just repetitive eat or constantly eat the wrong things. Now I'm eating the right things, but I'm still eating the same things all the time. And I thrive like that. My wife needs variety, so she does a lot of the fancy recipes and dishes, but mostly for me it's just steak and then, burgers or bacon when I need it.
Awesome. Yeah, makes sense. And I'm glad you're one of those people who can eat the same thing and not get too bored of it. I unfortunately am not. So, but one of these days I plan on trying carnivore, and we'll see if it helps me out there a little bit. And I guess the last thing is, what types of meats do you eat? What types do you avoid?
So again, I said this earlier, but carnivore is zero carb. It's about food choice. It has nothing to do with the macros, and that's where keto comes in. So you could essentially, if you go buy a bunch of sirloin steaks and chicken thighs, you could eat those and you'd be carnivore, but your protein macro would be insanely high. I still prioritize ribeyes. I really like chuck eye steaks, although a little on the leaner side. They are higher fat content steak. Um, Flank steaks or skirt steaks are pretty high in fat, so I'll look for those. If I get a burger, if I get ground beef, I like to have it in a burger patty form, because that when you cook that, you don't lose as much of the fat. It seals more of the fat inside, so that you don't lose as much grease. Or unless you're one of the people who like to pour the grease over or eat that, but I don't do that typically. I just like to make burger patties and have those. Um, but yeah, I'd still prioritize the fattier cuts of meat, 73% ground beef when I can get it,
Mhm.
that type of thing.
Okay, so anything's okay on carnivore, but you prefer a higher fat just because of your ketogenic roots.
Yeah, because that's again, it goes back to how do you feel, how do you perform. Um, I when the higher my fats are, the better that typically is. The better I'm sleeping, the better I'm performing in the gym at jiu-jitsu. Um, so yeah, I'd like to keep my fats high, no lower than 70, typically no higher than 80, and that's my range.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we are almost out of time here, so I'm gonna give you a little bit. Is there anything you want to say before I go ahead and wrap this up?
First, thank you for having me or for doing this. You guys probably don't know, but I actually reached out to Tom because, I said I'm a repetitive eater. I'm carnivore, zero carb. So a lot of times my answers aren't super satisfactory for people who really have more of a hard time with a ketogenic diet. I think Tom has a much more realistic approach that normal people can follow and take more away from that. So I was really happy that you said yes. Thank you for having me. I am at PrimalBro on Instagram, PrimalBro on YouTube, PrimalBro.com. If you go to my website, you can get to everything else that I'm on. Pinterest. I used to be a recipe creator, food blogger. So if you go to my website, there's still some keto recipes on there that you can try, mashed cauliflower and things like that. Not a lot of people know that or realize that because I'm big on YouTube now and I don't do a lot of blogging anymore. But yeah, check me out, PrimalBro.com, at PrimalBro, and thank you for having me. Thank you guys for watching and for the questions.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for joining us. And guys, check him out. I'm gonna have all the links in the descriptions. We did shoot a separate video with separate topics for his channel. That's gonna be the first link. I'll link to his YouTube, and I'll actually put his social media stuff up on the screen right now. So seriously, guys, check Ben out if you're interested in carnivore. He knows a lot about it, and he's willing to help you guys. So with that, I'm gonna close out the video. If you have not subscribed yet, go and hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to Ben, like the video, and leave questions, comments. I'll get them to him, or you can just leave them on his channel. So I'll see you guys in the next one.